Yankees fans, let's talk. The season ended just a few weeks ago, and the questions left hanging still echo through the Bronx. What worked, what didn't, and most importantly, what comes next? Because the truth is, every great franchise eventually has to look in the mirror and face a difficult decision. And for today's Yankees, that decision has a name: Jazz Chisholm Jr. But before we dive into this story, hit that like button and subscribe. Because here, the conversation is fan to fan. If you live and breathe Yankees baseball, if every win and loss feels personal, this is your place. Your interaction helps this video reach more fans across the Bronx and keeps this space alive for those who truly understand what it means to root for the Pinstripes. So let's get into it, because today's debate is going to be a big one. The easy smile, the bold style, the energy that lights up the stadium, all of it is part of the Jazz Chisholm package. A player who turns an ordinary game into a show, bringing color and emotion to one of baseball's most traditional uniforms. But along with that flash comes a doubt. Jazz has been exactly what the Yankees hoped for when they brought him from Miami last summer. A versatile, talented athlete capable of filling critical holes in the infield. Yet, as with so many players who mix brilliance and risk, time always tests the value of the investment. And that's what this story is really about. Not just numbers, contracts, or rumors, but understanding who Jazz Chisholm is, what he represents to the Yankees, and why his future might be one of the toughest decisions New York's front office faces in the coming months. When the Yankees acquired Jazz from the Marlins, the expectation was clear. They needed someone to occupy a position that had felt cursed for years. Third base had become a constant high-level piece that just represents a short-term, no matter how hard the team tried. And Jazz, even though he wasn't a natural third baseman, took on the challenge. He learned the position quickly, adapted his game, and did what few expected. He brought stability to a position of chaos. In a way, it was a small miracle within the season. Chisholm brought energy and confidence, and with that, the Yankees reorganized offensively. He became a symbol of the tactical flexibility both the manager and fans had been craving. But 2025 brought a new chapter. With Gleyber Torres leaving in free agency, the Yankees needed someone reliable at second base. And once again, Jazz was a choice. He accepted the role without hesitation, returning to position where his career began and delivering a solid season, full of highlights and a few rough patches. His overall line: a .242 batting average, 31 home runs, and a 4.2 WAR, the best of his career and the third highest among all Yankee position players. On paper, those numbers impress. They show consistency, power, and impact. But there's another side to the story. In 130 games, Jazz struck out 148 times, a high number, especially for a player expected to be a key part of the offense. He's the kind of player who can change a game with one swing, but can also kill a rally just as quickly. And in the playoffs, where every detail matters, his .182 average in consecutive Octobers raised red flags. When baseball demands calm and control, Jazz's aggressive style can sometimes become his own enemy. That dichotomy is fascinating. Jazz is the kind of player who, when he connects, makes the stadium shake. But when he misses, fans are left with their hands on their heads. He's pure emotion, for better and for worse. Joel Sherman of the New York Post summed it up perfectly by comparing him to NBA star Russell Westbrook, a player with limitless energy who sometimes plays too fast for his own good. He's the guy you date, but don't marry, Sherman wrote. The analogy fits, because Chisholm is exactly that kind of player. The spark you want when things get flat, but who requires structure around him, a tactical and emotional framework to channel his talent. And that might be the Yankees' true dilemma. Today, Jazz stands at the center of a discussion that blends emotion, strategy, and math. He's projected to earn $11.7 million in 2026, nearly double what he made this season. And more importantly, he'll become a free agent after 2026. That puts the front office at a crossroads. If they believe Jazz is part of the future, now's the time to talk extension. But if they don't see a long-term fit, this might be the best time to trade him, while his market value is still high. But as with every good baseball decision, nothing is simple. Trading him now would reopen a hole in the infield. The defensive rotation, which finally seemed stable, would once again have gaps. Ryan McMahon, for instance, could fill third base. He's still under contract for 2 more seasons. But if McMahon moves there, the Yankees would again lack a starting second baseman. There's a possible internal solution. George Lombard Jr., a 20-year-old prospect and the team's 2023 first-round pick. Lombard has potential, but he's still raw. In Double-A, he hit just .215 across 108 games. He's adjusting to pro-level pitching and likely won't be ready before 2027. In other words, if the Yankees trade Jazz now, they'll need a stopgap solution, either through free agency or a short-term deal. And that brings us to the financial angle. The Yankees know they need payroll flexibility if they want to chase big names like Cody Bellinger, who's expected to command around $150 million. Keeping Jazz another year means carrying a rising salary with uncertain returns. It's the classic modern baseball equation, potential versus cost. But reducing Jazz to numbers alone would be unfair. Above all, he represents something beyond stats. Jazz Chisholm is charisma and showmanship. He's the kind of player who can make a simple base hit feel like theater. When he steps onto the field, there's electricity in the air, an expectation that something special might happen. He's not just an athlete, he's a presence. And in a sport that often battles monotony, that presence matters. Still, Yankees baseball is built on a different philosophy: discipline, consistency, and predictability. The greats of the franchise, Jeter, Rivera, Posada, Judge, all share one common trait: reliability. Jazz, by his very nature, is the opposite. He's emotion, instinct, boldness. And that's exactly why he divides opinions both inside and outside the clubhouse. When he's hot, he looks like an all-star. When he's off, his mental lapses and wild swings make him look more like a rookie than a veteran. Yet despite the ups and downs, he was still the Yankees' third most valuable player in 2025 by WAR. That shows how real his impact is, even when his flaws draw attention. Tactically, Chisholm is an intriguing piece. He's proven he can play multiple positions, a huge asset for any team seeking flexibility. His athletic instincts allow him to cover ground quickly and make tough defensive plays. Offensively, his mechanics are aggressive and explosive. Jazz's swing is pure risk, wide, powerful, unpredictable. When he connects, the ball explodes off his bat, often into the stands. But that same swing makes him vulnerable to pitchers who change speeds and attack the edges. His strikeouts are the price of his daring style. But it's hard to ask him to be different, because that daring is part of what makes him unique. On the bases, he's fast, instinctive, and unafraid to take risks. Sometimes they pay off. Sometimes they cost the team an inning. But in a league that's become increasingly technical and emotionless, seeing someone play with that much fire is refreshing. And that contrast is exactly what makes the Yankees hesitate. Jazz would fit perfectly in franchises with more creative freedom, like the Padres or Mariners. Teams that embrace chaos and let talent flow without too much control. In the Yankees' historically rigid and methodical system, that style can be seen as a problem. But what if he adapts? What if, instead of trading him, the Yankees invest in making him part of a younger, more dynamic core? That's a possibility the front office has to consider. The problem is, time isn't on their side. The Yankees' championship window is open, but not for long. Aaron Judge is in his prime. Garrett Cole remains dominant, but the roster needs balance. Every wasted dollar today could cost him a real chance in October. Sherman suggested the team should at least listen to offers. And indeed, there's a market for a player like Chisholm. Rebuilding teams with payroll space and a need for energy can make tempting offers. But there's a difference between listening and acting. The Yankees know trading him now is risky. They'd lose a player who, for all his unpredictability, still produces. And replacing him wouldn't be easy or cheap. On the other hand, waiting too long could backfire. If he underperforms in 2026, his trade value plummets. What could be a return of top prospects today might turn into a salary dump tomorrow. It's the classic dilemma. Sell high or bet on a rebound. On the field, Jazz still has adjustments to make. He needs to improve pitch recognition, maintain emotional control under pressure, and find consistency in contact. But his talent is undeniable, and it's rare to find a player with that mix of athleticism and versatility. He's the kind of athlete who can change a game with one play. A diving stop, a clutch home run, a stolen base that flips the momentum. Those moments don't always show up in stats. They're the kind fans feel. And maybe deep down, that's Jazz Chisholm's true value. He's not perfect and never will be, but he's human, unpredictable, intense. And that's rare in such a calculated sport. Looking ahead, 2026 becomes a defining year. Jazz will have a chance to prove whether he deserves a permanent place in the Bronx, or if he'll just be another short but unforgettable chapter in Yankees history. If he breaks out offensively and leads with power and passion, the front office will think twice before letting him go. But if he repeats the inconsistency of 2025, it might be the end of the line. It's one of those cases where every decision carries risk, and no answer is completely right. But one thing is clear, Jazz Chisholm has changed the Yankees' dynamic. He's brought life, emotion, and a touch of chaos to a team that sometimes felt too predictable. And even if his future in New York remains uncertain, his impact is already written. Because players like Jazz never go unnoticed. They divide opinions, spark debates, but above all, they make people feel. And maybe, in a sport that's become so technical, that still matters most. Jazz Chisholm is talent and turbulence, joy and frustration. He's the kind of player who makes you cheer wildly one inning and scream in anger the next. But baseball needs players like that, because they make the game bigger than numbers and spreadsheets. Now, the ball's in the Yankees' court. Will they keep him and try to mold him into their system? Or let him go, searching for stability and room for new stars? No choice will be easy. But one thing for sure, the Bronx never forgets those who leave their mark. And for better or worse, Jazz Chisholm is already part of Yankees history.